Hey guys, and welcome back to another video here. And in this video, we're just going to quickly set up this little cool setup here for Sonic the Bearded Dragon. So stick around, and I hope you enjoy the video. Sonic, my central bearded dragon here, was probably my one most needed upgrading reptiles that I've got here. He was just desperately needing a bigger enclosure. This old 3 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot enclosure just wasn't cutting the mustard. I have been meaning to do this for a long time and I've been putting it off, but I couldn't think about what to do. And then it all of a sudden struck me. I was trying to sell this big grey URS vivarium and I was like, why am I trying to sell this? This would be perfect for Sonic. It's 5 foot long, it's 770 millimeters deep front to back, and it's 550 millimeters tall. It's quite a large land area for a central bearded dragon, and I thought, you know what, this is going to be absolutely perfect for Sonic. So why don't I just kind of convert this into a really nice looking habitat and give him somewhere that he can just go into straight away, and it's not really going to cost me a hell of a lot of money. I did want to add in some LED lighting to this enclosure though, because I thought that'd be really good just to brighten it up and really make him feel like a bit more, I don't know, just a bit more daylight in there. It also meant that I wasn't going to burn out my UVB tube so much as well, so I could actually run my UVB for a little bit less during the day. So I'm only running the UV for about 6 hours of a day, and then from there the LED light can go on and just keep up that daylight spectrum. I added some access holes on the right hand side of the enclosure to make it easy to get my cables through. As far as heating this enclosure, I decided to use an Arcadia deep heat projector, an 80 watt one at that, and basically put it into a smaller Get Your Pet Right dome, and then that just sits inside of that actual dome that sits down lower in the actual enclosure there. And I wired this all up to a microclimate thermostat. It's just a basic on-off thermostat, and it's basically just in place just to save the enclosure getting too hot and hurting poor little Sonic. From there it was time to get into the fun stuff. I started off by adding in my substrate. A lot of this was just different types of red reptile sand that I had stored up. And I think from memory I put in about 25-30 kilos of that sand and I mixed it through with a whole bunch of play sand. This just makes it go a little bit further, as I reckon there's probably close to 40-50 kilo of sand in that enclosure. Now I managed to find this big old piece of like rotten gum log here. I'd actually found this down a local park. I thought this would be an absolute perfect piece for this bearded dragon, because it's actually really hollow on the inside. It's all kind of concaved and there's plenty of hiding space under there for him. However, this piece was from memory about 2.5 meters long, so quite a big piece of timber. Don't mind me and my safety shoes here, don't try this at home. But yeah, basically I just sawed this through with a bush saw, and I used a really big piece as kind of like a big chunk to kind of cover up most of the enclosure, allowing him to be covered up in the cool side, the warm side, the medium to warm side, wherever he wanted to go. This piece in particular is also going to act as a little basking point underneath the heat light there. So this will allow him to get nice and warm and toasty on top of that actual bit of timber. The second piece that I'm going to put in here will actually allow him to get really close to the UV should he want to get a little bit higher. That actually ends up being one of his favourite spots that where he actually really loves hanging out inside of the enclosure. I didn't want to waste any of this timber because it was such a nice piece. Sonic's getting on a little bit in age now. He's got to be around 9 years old. So essentially I wanted a nice big comfy ramp for him to be able to get around this enclosure super easy. Don't get me wrong, he's still incredibly sprightly. But I know that, another couple of years he's probably going to start getting a little bit older, a little bit more frail. So I wanted to make life a little bit easier for him earlier rather than later. I wanted to add in some other little fine twigs and branches just to kind of really resemble some of those dry scrubby areas out west. After all, these guys come from the west of the Great Dividing Range, and they come from these arid regions where things are a little bit less green, a little bit more dry, a little bit more brittle. So I used a whole bunch of different little dry twigs and branches to kind of really fill in a little bit of space and give it that kind of feel. Thanks to a friend sending me up a whole bunch of dried out spinifex, I had all of this spinifex on hand that I thought I'd love to put a couple of big clumps in Sonic's enclosure. That just screams Western deserts to me. And how good does it look in there too? Just giving it that little bit of an extra pop, a little bit of extra shape, a little bit of contrast. I absolutely love spinifex. One of the last crucial things that I wanted to put in here was a big sturdy water bowl, and for this one I'm using an Exoterra water bowl. Sonic had not long woken up for brumation, so I thought now would be the perfect time to transfer him into this enclosure. As you can see, he does look rather small in it compared to his other enclosure. I thought I'd give him a bit of a run around and a bit of a test in here and see what he thought. However, I did want to add in a whole bunch more leaf litter. Humble bearded dragons still amaze me, especially when you keep them in a bit more of a naturalistic setup. Now that might just be my personal preference, but I do find that it just looks way better on them rather than lino tiles and comfy couches and hammocks and all that sort of gear. Sonic was one of the real, I'll call it, first reptiles that I ever owned, and he's been an absolute delight his whole life. Only recently he's actually ended up having to go to a vet to actually get his teeth cleaned. He had a little bit of tartar build up on those, so if you can notice a couple of little lumps on his chin, then essentially that's just where some fluid had built up inside of his jaw, which is all cleared up now. He's such a beautiful little lizard. I absolutely adore this little guy. He's got so much character, and he's so personable. I ended up stacking a whole bunch more gum leaves in here, and these are gum leaves that were brought to me by Fish Organics and Reptile Supplies. I love these bags of gum leaves. I love how they come prepared, ready to go inside of your enclosure. It's so much easier than going and collecting gum leaves and getting dirt out of them and cleaning them up and all that. Guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and just before we wrap up here, I did want to mention that I do have a new website out where you can purchase vinyl backings, so you can actually get habitat images over on backings and stuff like that, like I've done in my other reptile room. And that website, of course, is from bushtobox.com, so make sure you go and check that out. We're just starting out small. There's going to be way more images, way more sizes and stuff to come. I've got other trips planned in the near future as well to get some more images, and I've got some friends keeping some eyes out for some images and stuff like that that they can take around the country. But without any further ado, I hope you enjoyed this little setup here for Sonic the Bearded Dragon. He's absolutely loving this new setup. He's been in here now for probably a little longer than since when I filmed the video. It's probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago now. But in saying that, he's absolutely loving having the extra space, and he makes use of absolutely every part of it as well. He loves these big hollow logs. He loves getting into all of it. He's having a ball in here. So guys, without any further ado, I'll wrap it up now. Don't forget to give the video a like if you did like it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more reptile related content. Make sure to drop a comment down below as well. And before you go, if you did want to support the channel further, you can always check me out over on Patreon and Teespring as well to contribute a little bit further. Alright guys, with that being said, I hope you take it easy, and I'll catch you on the next video.